and welcome to the USIBC West Coast Digital Summit. This is our second year where we remain in a virtual format. However, we hope that next year we will be able to see you in person on the West Coast. Now, the purpose of the West Coast Summit is to connect the dynamic digital and technology ecosystems in the United States and India. And due to time differences and limited travel, it is really hard to connect these two geographies. Our conversations over the next few days will emphasize these connections in technology, IT, and media and entertainment sectors. We include a large number of members and speakers from the West Coast to emphasize these important relationships. Our topics of discussion will look to innovation, technology development, and business issues. And so while topics of policy and regulation are of course embedded in these conversations, one key objective of this week's program is to talk business development, discuss new technologies, and identify ways for the US-India technology corridor to grow. Lastly, we hope that our conversations will impact the technology agenda, driving positive interaction in the new year. In fact, immediately following our 4 days of programming, the two governments have scheduled the ICT working group for this coming Friday. Hopefully, some of our discussions can feed into those interactions and help create opportunities for investment, technology development, and business in the bilateral environment. Now, over the next few days, you will hear from leading government and industry officials who will emphasize the leading edge technology and business issues. Today, you will hear from two startup gurus, Desh Deshpande and Sridhar Vembu, about new models for rural entrepreneurship. We also have a panel on data centers looking at new technology, business models, and sustainability. Tomorrow, we will discuss the high-tech auto tech and the future of cars, along with a panel on the changing dynamics of digital finance, digital payments, cryptocurrency, blockchains, and more. On Wednesday, we will hear from several partners at Kaitan & Company on recent legal and regulatory issues. And on Thursday, we will toggle to a member-only discussion covering the privacy bill and the open network for e-commerce, and start talking about our plans for 2022, the strategy and programs that we will pursue. But first, today, we will hear from several leaders from the Indian government, starting with the Consul General, who will provide a welcome address. We are so pleased to have Consul General TV Nagendra Prasad here with us today, as well as an opening keynote from K Rajaraman, the Secretary of the Department of Telecoms. We will have inaugural comments also from Dr. Ajai Kumar Garg, the Director of MeitY, and from Jeet V, the CEO of the MeitY Startup Hub, as well as Dr. P.D. Vaghela, the Chairman of TRI. So you guys are in for quite a program, and of course, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the folks who made this possible, our sponsors and partners. Dev Virlapati, from the CEO and President of S2 Tech, as well as the team from the MeitY Startup Hub. And with that, I really want to turn it over now to the Consul General, Dr. Prasad, who has been just a phenomenal partner and an outstanding leader based in California, and really been a strong interface for USIBC in the technology sector as well. So Dr. Prasad, over to you.
Namaste. Thank you, Nisha, and the team at USIBC. I'm happy to be back at USIBC's West Coast Digital Week this year as well. Thanks for the opportunity to interact with the bright brains of the digital world. We are meeting at a crucial juncture. Again, last year when we were deliberating, it was uncertainty all over. COVID was at its peak and solutions nowhere near. But a year later, we are all in a much better condition. It may just be apt to mention that the digital infrastructure has contributed tremendously to navigate the challenge. Digitization and democracy go hand in hand. Both speak of transparency, both stand for participatory, both are people centric. It's all but natural that India and US, the oldest and largest democracies, see deeper and an ever expanding cooperation in digital sphere as well. It's all but natural to be a critical element of our bilateral relationship that covers wide array of areas such as defense, security, energy, education, science and technology, agriculture and healthcare, and other fields. Both India and US acknowledge the importance of exchange of ideas in digital space. We have a strategic relationship that reflects our shared values, common vision, and shared principles for cyberspace also. Both sides recognize our commitment to an open, secure, reliable cyberspace to promote the internet and digital cooperation as an engine for innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. India and US signed a bilateral framework for cyber relations in 2016, which forms the basis of our engagement on space issues. This framework was in fact the first agreement of its type for both India and US to sign. Equally important is our cooperation in digital economy. We share a thriving bilateral engagement in this sphere as well. India's digital space, especially in B2B, B2C context, is undergoing a historic evolution. India's IT, business process management, BPM industry, excluding e-commerce, today stands as a massive 190 billion US dollar market, that is for financial year 2020. This market is expected to expand rapidly and is likely to reach US dollars 350 billion by 2025. Its share in total service exports is estimated at 52%, and the industry's contribution to India's GDP is around 8%. Today, this service sector accounts for nearly 50% of FDI received in the country. You all know that despite the challenges of COVID, India received over $81 billion of foreign direct investment in last year. You must have noticed many tech giants from the West Coast committed large investments in Indian market, including Facebook's 5.7 billion, Google's 10 billion, and Qualcomm, Silver Lake, Sequoia Capital adding about 2 billion. India today stands as the number one sourcing destination for global IT BPM industry. IT industry is the topmost private sector industrial employer with over 4.47 million skilled IT talented workers. It is indeed the digital talent capital of the world. India continues to be the leader in offshore locations with over 20,000 technology firms. Not surprising that companies such as Intel, Cisco have their largest R&D centers outside the US only in India. These are just a couple of big names I could quote, but I'm sure you are aware of many more such examples. We currently have 80 plus third-party data centers in India and is witnessing investments in around 15 projects annually with a growing presence of both local and international players. India today houses world's third largest startup ecosystem in the world. As of September 2021, there were 66 unicorns from India. There are over 50,000 DPIIT, Department for Promotion of International Trade, recognized startups and 325 incubators in the country. During 2015 to 2020, 115,000 tech patents have been filed in India. Friends, COVID crisis has also shown the other face of human resilience aided by technology. There were many interesting developments that took place in India during these times. Digital transactions have increased by tenfold. Every hour, India clocks a transaction of over 3 million rupees by tens of thousands of digital payments. Credit Suisse forecasts that digital payments will become a $1 trillion market in India by 2023. India's Arogya Setu app and CoWIN, which track, monitor and spread of COVID cases and vaccination, has been downloaded more than 127 million times. Using aggregator apps, hyperlocal street vendors or e-rickshaw drivers are now able to provide door-to-door services. The One Nation, One Platform program, PM e-Vidya program, provides a dedicated channel for students and has liberalized distance and online learning regulatory framework. BharatNet project aims to connect all the 250,000 Gram Panchayat, that is village panchayats, by a high-speed optical fiber network. With 3.40 lakh kilometers of optic fiber already laid, BharatNet has reached 1.29 lakh Gram Panchayats already. India currently has over 1,700 global capability centers, GCC, comprising of significantly large enterprises. After the pandemic disrupted global marketplaces, even mid-sized companies from multiple geographies have joined the GCC bandwagon. A lot of companies from the EU, UK, South America, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, Indonesia and Middle East are taking advantage of GCC opportunities in India. The rise of India in global GCC landscape is fueled by availability of exceptional talent in abundance with significant domain expertise. Government of India has taken these developments seriously and has fast-tracked several policy initiatives to augment the rapid changes that are taking place in the digital world. Government is well on its course to introduce the data center policy. I think the draft policy is being discussed at the committee's level. There are also other draft policies which are currently being considered at various levels, including national strategy for additive manufacturing and national strategy on blockchain, AI, software product development, patents, etc. Friends, it's no doubt that Digital India initiative has intensified the focus on digital capability within India. Cloud services and e-commerce in particular witnessing a steady surge. Cloud services market in India is expected to grow by more than 35% to US dollars 1.3 billion in 2022. Business to business B2B e-commerce is expected to reach US dollars 700 billion, and business to consumer B2C e-commerce is forecast to reach 102 US billion. It is estimated that by 2023 India will have a connected market of up to 700 million smartphones and about 800 million internet users. Healthcare, energy, environment, green tech and electric mobility, where Digitech plays a very important role, hold a great promise for cross-border collaboration. So are the opportunities under the smart city projects, and with advent of artificial intelligence aided by 5G, IoT, big data analytics, blockchain technology, radical transformation of economic fabric of mankind will happen sooner than later. We are poised for the next giant technical leap, similar to what the internet and electricity had done decades and century ago. India-US partnership will be very crucial for the giant leap. India's scale, young population, technical capability, entrepreneurial energy, and its diaspora link it powerfully to the US in general and to the West Coast in particular. There is a kind of symbiotic relationship reflected in the way businesses from both sides are operating at present. This region, with 11 states, 1.5 million Indian diaspora, contributes nearly $30 billion to India-US services trade. Tech clusters in Silicon Valley, Seattle, Los Angeles, San Diego, etc. are dominated by Indians. Informal estimates suggest that more than 40% of the tech professionals in this region are of Indian origin. Some say being in Google or Facebook office in Silicon Valley is as good as being in Bengaluru or Hyderabad. This linkage will continue to deepen as well as diversify into new and emerging areas. I see this trend very clearly visible in the cross-border startup ecosystem. I urge Indian and US companies present here today to make the best use of the available opportunities and to help two economies, two countries to further enhance our engagement. Once again, I congratulate USIBC and Nisha and her team for their efforts in convening this annual Digital Week series. It helps a lot in further strengthening our digital cooperation between India and US, and also particularly India and West Coast. Let me also wish the deliberations at the Digital Week all the very best, and then they will really get into strengthening of a digital bridge between India and US. Thank you all for your kind attention and wish you all happy holidays. Namaste. Jai Hind.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this first US-India West Coast Digital Summit. What a great initiative aimed at fostering closer collaboration and cooperation between two of the world's great tech powerhouses. International dialogues like this one are vital to unleashing the true power of partnership. And partnership will be increasingly key in finding solutions to the many challenges that we face today. The first digital entrepreneurs who set up their businesses in the area we now know as Silicon Valley created a unique hub for both research and innovation. Now, a select handful of other countries, India among them, have leveraged and grown that model to create their own thriving tech communities, where cutting-edge research is driving digital development and pushing the envelope on the power and potential of emerging technologies. The growth of India's tech sector is a truly remarkable success story. From its earliest days as an outsourcing hub, India has been racing up the Global Innovation Index produced by our sister agency, WIPO, and in 2019 was ranked third in the world for attracting investment for tech transactions. That innovation culture has created fertile ground for startups. India is now estimated to have the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, with 26 young companies valued at more than $1 billion. And India has another not-so-secret weapon in its armory: the energy and talent of its youth. More than 50% of India's 1.3 billion people are under the age of 25. And the country already ranks 8th in the world for the number of students graduating in science and engineering. While all of this has been happening across the ocean through talent, enthusiasm, and sheer hard work, the Indian diaspora has earned itself a place at the very heart of Silicon Valley's tech community, with leaders like Microsoft's Satya Nadella, like Alphabet's Sundar Pichai, like IBM's Arvind Krishna, and recently announced Twitter's Parag Agrawal, inspiring other young Indians to reach for the stars. Despite the impressive achievements, I believe there's still tremendous potential to further accelerate India's digital innovation growth. And that's why ITU is just about to open a brand new area office in New Delhi, the first new addition in our regional presence in 15 years. Our New Delhi office will bring us closer to our Indian partners in government, the private sector, civil society, and it will help us strengthen our work to promote digital inclusion throughout the sub-region. One important element of that work is our new ITU International Center of Digital Innovation, known as iCODI, in which we're developing with the support of the UAE. iCODI will provide a safe, co-designed space for ITU members and other stakeholders to co-create, to co-innovate, and to collaborate on strategies to accelerate digital transformation and drive progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. We're also co-hosting a webinar series around digital technology innovations, together with the Telecommunications Standards Development Society of India, with the support of the Department of Telecommunications, select ministries of the Government of India, and other partners from the Asia-Pacific region. These webinars highlight India's many digital innovations, such as the National Digital ID System, Aadhaar, and new digital financial services. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID crisis has turbocharged digital transformation. Where connectivity permitted, anything that could go digital did go digital. We now have an opportunity to make a virtue of that necessity. Innovation is the critical element we need to drive adoption and value creation in underserved markets. Old-fashioned, business-as-usual approaches won't cut it. We urgently need new thinking to bridge the digital divide, so that people everywhere are empowered to participate in our digital world. ITU's belief in the untapped catalytic power of digital to re-energize the SDG process and get us back on track to meet our goals by 2030 is the driving force behind our decision to launch the Partner to Connect Digital Coalition. This bold new global platform aims to mobilize multi-stakeholder partnerships and concrete commitments to bring meaningful connectivity to the world's hardest to connect communities. The Partner to Connect pledging mechanism, due for launch early next year, will serve as an important driver of innovation in its own right, stimulating commitments to support startups and entrepreneurs in the digital sphere. I warmly encourage everyone to join us so that we can showcase the first results of this effort at ITU's upcoming World Telecommunications Development Conference in June 2022. Let me close by expressing my gratitude to the U.S.-India Business Council and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for convening this important event and for inviting me to be part of it. I look forward to hearing the outcome of your sessions and to working ever more closely with partners in India through our new area office to achieve our vision of a better shared digital future for all. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure to address the inaugural session of the US-India Business Council's West Coast Digital Summit. India and the United States have traditionally shared common ambitions and values on wide-ranging issues of mutual and global interest. Our growing cooperation over the years has seen rise of bilateral investments and renewed cooperation in key sectors involving information technology and a variety of strategic sectors. It is heartening to see that with the changing dynamics of global landscape, leaders and strategists from both sides have embarked on building a more connected and mutually synergistic collaboration network between Indian and American technology and innovation ecosystems. The COVID-19 pandemic has been an enormous challenge to both of our nations these past years, with a massive human and economic toll. During these years, there has been a growing recognition and consensus that new ideas and especially digital innovations are critical for overcoming the pandemic and for driving inclusive growth in the post-pandemic economic landscape. Today, innovations in digitization, telecommunications, and information systems must focus on solving some of the most pressing challenges facing humanity. India and America have been trailblazers in this effort. Throughout the crisis, the leadership of both nations have been intensely engaged, keeping in constant touch to chart the road ahead. CoWIN, India's digital backbone for this enormous and unprecedented COVID-19 vaccination drive undertaken for the country's billion-plus population, has been an exciting innovation integrating public-facing digital portals into the public health architecture. India has supported the idea of digital public goods and has come forward to share applications like CoWIN with the entire world. The pandemic and our employment of digital interfaces demonstrates how the sector has been critical in creating an inclusive society. Thanks to CoWIN, India has delivered more than 1.2 billion doses of vaccine so far. Similarly, financial inclusion has also been one of the important tasks that Government of India has undertaken to enable the outreach of financial services to the underprivileged. Moving forward, we must keep the spirit of digital inclusivity in all spheres of governance through the collaboration of the private sector. We have embraced the spirit of digitization in every sphere, spurred by a slew of path-breaking initiatives like Digital India, Startup India, and Make in India. India is well on its course of a digital-first trajectory and becoming a trillion-dollar digital economy by 2025. Digital advancements have seen us transition towards rapid reconfiguration of the systems we relied upon earlier, with a new paradigm based on the goals of inclusiveness, sustainability, and resilience. India is experiencing a confluence of several trends: urbanization, youthful demographic bulge, and the fierce urgency of overcoming immediate physical obstacles to progress. There is a concerted effort now to prepare India for the future. The Government of India has taken a number of reforms, some of which are very strategic and long-term in nature. Some of the important reforms that you might be interested in is the liberalization of the foreign direct investment regulations in the sector. Currently, almost like 99% of the sectors are under the automatic route. Similarly, a number of long-standing and long-range reforms in the financial sector including things like the recapitalization of banks, bringing in discipline in financial lending, implementation of the goods and services tax, etc., have led to consolidation of India's growth story. We are also investing in growing infrastructure in this country. We have launched programs such as the National Infrastructure Pipeline and the National Monetization Pipeline in order to bring in private investment into the infrastructure in India. We are also investing in the indigenous capabilities in telecom technologies such as 5G and 6G. Our production-linked incentive schemes in a variety of sectors, including electronics and telecommunications, are already attracting local and global players to set up their manufacturing bases in India. With a thriving digital ecosystem and diversity of challenges, India is one of the leading players in artificial intelligence and machine learning, especially in human-centered and ethical use of artificial intelligence. India tripled its internet user base, adding 3 internet subscribers every second. Today, more than 700 million internet subscribers with 99% of urban India are now active online. The India Stack digital infrastructure, built on the foundations of India's biometric database, the Aadhaar, the world's largest identity database issued to over 1.25 billion Indians, is a momentous accomplishment in itself. Taking leadership of technology isn't just a business opportunity either. It has a strong moral component. We are keen to share our startup-led innovation prowess with the US to create affordable and accessible technologies to serve as the architecture for a more inclusive and a sustainable society. On the US-India partnership, we have a tremendous opportunity to further expand our digital trade relationship, which stands at nearly $100 billion, to the benefit of our nations and the world. It is crucial that we adopt measures that can promote further investment and growth in this sector. And this is a wonderful forum to deliberate on the opportunities available to us. USIBC's West Coast Digital Summit is an impactful forum to connect our geographically disparate nations into intimate partnerships through the thought leadership and an expanding commercial relationship, an achievement appropriately in the spirit of connectivity that the technology and telecommunication sector has facilitated for the world at large. I wish the organizers all the best in putting together a robust and engaging program for the summit. I must also congratulate the leaders in creating avenues such as these to unleash the power and potential of the US-India Global Digital Partnership. Thank you.
Hello friends, good afternoon, good evening to my friends in India, US and anywhere in the world who are actually part of this very important event, the West Coast Digital Summit. India and US always have been very important strategic partners, collaborating on an array of things from trade to strategic relationships and to collaborate on many multilateral platforms to take the values that the two democracies have always uh, championed upon. Today, in the post-pandemic era, or if I can safely say that, digitalization has become a key enabler of technology. And here, the India-US startup relationship has become the key benchmark on which this relationship will be defined. Because with US championing on the startup ecosystem through the strengths that the Silicon Valley has brought, and in the last few years, India has excelled in the startup ecosystem, and we are known as the Silicon Valley of the East. 50,000 plus startups, 20,000 in the deep tech space, more than 20 unicorns emerging from India in the last 10 months, more than $15 billion being invested in the last. Not only we have shown the prowess in regard to the number of unicorns, which are largest in the one of the largest number of unicorns evolving in the present era, but the present success of the IPOs of the few of the startups like Zomato's and NISA and of late the Paytms have always demonstrated that the Indian startup ecosystem has matured out. The time has come where the frugal, low-cost solutions built upon public digital platforms that India has championed around with the might of the technology enablement of West or US needs to come together to solve many of the pressing problems with that are actually being faced globally. India US not have to only have to do a trade relationship which is mutual, but actually have to come together to solve the global problems. It is also important to say that in the last few years, India's digital first strategy has actually worked. Many of the systems, the efficiencies brought into by using digital technologies have shown that India has the capability to solve the magnitude of the problems with the uh, large demographic spread and the population it has. The recent success of the CoWIN app in delivering more than 1 billion vaccinations in the shortest span of time that globally is a clear demonstration that how India has used technology for the enablement. The speed at which the GST system, the way the direct benefit transfers through our digital identity system, the success of the unified payment institute to give the largest growth to digital payments, connecting the traditional banking systems to the mobile wallet, are clear examples where India has demonstrated that technology is there for inclusion, and technology now has the power to solve the problems of whole 7+ billion population globally, not only giving better experience to the top 2 billion population. What we need to do together is that how the two systems can come together, how the investments into these startups become seamless, and they are able to actually create a difference which the world needs very, very urgently right now. In addition, what I like to say is that MeitY, as a ministry which I represent as a director here, has taken a number of steps through which deep tech technologies can actually become a difference. The MeitY Startup Hub, which is an interconnect platform which my colleague Jeet will be talking about, the technology incubation and development of entrepreneurs, creating 51 centers in the institutes of higher learning and research. STPI, the key enabler for IT in this country, now moving from sheer outsourcing hubs to technology-driven companies enablement platform, are clear examples where MeitY is taking all necessary steps to them. In this regard, I'll also say that not only the top technology companies of US have India as an important trade partner, but most of them have important global capability centers creating state-of-art IP from Indian shores. Our strength on skill, our strength on research and development, which is low cost and frugal, have a lot to offer for my US counterparts. It's the right time that we come together, create a trusted value chain which these two democracies champion around. And not only we need to create strategic relationships, but we need to create relationships which can solve the large number of problems which the globe is facing, the post-pandemic and the pre-pandemic. Important to say that digitalization is not only important as a silo, but it has become a key enablement for increasing productivity in all other sectors of economy, be it agriculture, logistics, infrastructure, name a sector. Digitalization will be the key enablement for further progress in these sectors. And here, with our strength on low-cost solutions and the US strength on technology and converting that technology into economic capabilities, is important to come together and solve the global problems. I'm very happy to be here. I look forward to a very, very engrossing and deep um, uh, interaction on this in this summit. Look forward to the outcomes of this summit, and will be happy to take whatever recommendations this summit has to offer for both the governments. Thank you.
Hello to all the participants and the attendees. It's a great privilege and honor to be part of the session today organized by USIBC, focused on West Coast Summit in terms of how do we build ecosystems together. Now, when we look at it, where we are today in the digital world and what India has accomplished. So let's take a step back. It was our Honorable Prime Minister back in 2015 who launched the Digital India mission. And that mission was built around three pillars. One is inclusiveness, second is affordability, and third is transformativeness. The idea is that throughout this whole mission, technologies need to be developed, which are inclusive in nature and providing support to all the citizens of India across all the geographic heterogeneity that exists here. Second, it should be affordable. And third is that it should transform the arc of development that our country is going through today. Now, within 5 years, we have witnessed a tremendous growth in digital technologies in India. Now, if you look at it, the role that Aadhaar has played, the role that UPI has played for the fintech ecosystem now. If you look at what CoWIN app has done during the pandemic times in terms of vaccination of 1 billion people. Now, these are just examples of technologies that were created in the last handful of years, which have had a transformative effect on the population of the country. These are just some of the things. If we start talking about the marginalized sections of society and how they have been included, so direct benefit transfer, the Jan Dhan bank accounts, these are all solutions which empowered our citizens across the country. Now, MeitY, Ministry of Electronics and IT, has played a pivotal role in terms of conceptualizing and implementing these programs and initiatives of our government. Now, in parallel, once we start talking about technology and the role that startups are playing, In 2016 itself, our Prime Minister had launched the Startup India mission. He had the foresight to realize that the new India will be built on the intellect of the youth of this country. The demographic dividend that we have today is what will take India into the future. Now, after 5 years, India has become the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. More than 50,000 registered startups are there. We have creating more and more unicorns at an ever accelerating pace. So these are the things that our youth have been able to create for us, building on the vision that our Prime Minister had laid down, and the ministers and secretaries in various ministries have been working tirelessly to implement. Now, when we start talking about the role of digital technologies within the startup ecosystem, there are close to 18,000 deep tech startups. India represents a plethora of opportunities, or in other words, it's a rainbow of opportunities in terms of the impact that the startups can create, be it health tech, agri-tech, med tech, defense tech, infra tech. You name it, everywhere by marrying technology with the solution and the intellect of the entrepreneur, new solutions are being created, which are radically transforming how the work is done around the world, be it in the consumer society or be it in the enterprise level. These solutions are radically increasing the productivity, decreasing the time, increasing the inclusiveness of the society. Now, this dovetails very well into the global ecosystem, be it the rapidly growing cloud markets, right? Be it the industrial IoT, be it the smart startups that are being created. So if we look at from India's perspective, there are close to 20 different ministries working on creating digital platforms today, be it the National Health Digital Mission, or be it the one in the Ministry of Electronics and IT. Now, with the larger vision of creating a platform economy built on cloud infrastructure and fueled by data, that represents an opportunity which provides unparalleled scope for what our startups can create. At Ministry of Electronics and IT, we have created MeitY Startup Hub. This is a nodal agency for supporting, enabling, and accelerating the growth of startups in the deep tech and high tech domains, and whereby we are working strongly and closely with our academic partners, our corporate partners, as well as the investors to figure out how do we bring more market access to our startups, how do we bring more investment for our startups, and how do we bring more global expansion for our startups. Now, partnering with USIBC and providing this discussion platform today, we hope to take these startups to the next level of scalability in terms of solving global problems, not just problems for India, but problems that affect all the humanity around the world. Now, for example, currently Ministry at MeitY Startup Hub, we are supporting more than 51 incubators. We have 26 different centers of excellences focused on various deep tech areas, be it 5G, drone, robotics, industrial IoT, VR, VFX, animation, just to name a few. Aside from that, we are running multiple international immersion programs for our startups, be it with France, Germany, UK, and now our hope and our plan is that by partnering with USIBC in the first quarter of next year, we hope to identify some of the really relevant, interesting startups and the stakeholders, which can actually be taken to the West Coast and engage with the relevant stakeholders over there. Thereby, we can identify opportunities of building stronger linkages and bridges between the ecosystem in both the countries, which can benefit stakeholders on both the sides of the ocean. Now, I think this is a great forum, and this provides an opportunity for all of us to figure out how do we take the humanity into the 21st century and create solutions which are sustainable, inclusive, and which benefit all of humanity working together. So thank you for this opportunity, and really looking forward to engaging further with the West Coast community in terms of how do we bring more investors, how do we bring more startups, and how do we build bridges and communities and create more communication between all the stakeholders so that a new reality, a better world can be built together. Thank you.
Welcome to the USIBC's West Coast Digital Summit. We have discussed a broad variety of new markets and technologies that we anticipate will drive economic and commercial growth for years to come. In particular, we've discussed opportunities and actions needed to create a dynamic US-India ecosystem around cryptocurrency, digital health, geospatial technology, green and modern data centers, and other advances. We've heard from government decision makers and venture capitalists, all providing insight into the US-India economic corridor, Today, we'll hear from several startup gurus from both sides of the economic corridor. Our moderator is Day Verlapati. Day is the CEO and president of S2 Tech, a global company headquartered in Chesterfield, Missouri, with an offshore development center in Hyderabad, India. Day exemplifies the ethos of giving back to the community by supporting the development of entrepreneurial skills both here in India, as well as expanding activity in the US-India corridor. Finally, he is supporting rural economic development in India. Day, you have been so active in the USIBC and brought to the table many new ideas to enhance the US-India relationship. It's a privilege to hand the microphone off to you to moderate our conversation with two leading startup gurus, Sridhar Vembu, founder, CEO, Zoho, and Desh Deshpande, a legend in the technology startup arena.
Thank you, Atul, for the nice introduction. It's a great honor and privilege to be part of this conversation with Desh Deshpande and Sridhar Vembu to discuss changing geography of entrepreneurship and remote work. Historically, Silicon Valley has been the hub of startups, yet a recent Inc. magazine profiled a number of cities such as Austin, St. Louis, Kansas City, Nashville, and New Orleans in the top 50 best places to start a business. Entrepreneurs such as Sridhar Vembu have taken a giant step of moving from Bay Area to a small village in Tamil Nadu, India, to operate his business. So in this conversation, we will explore how innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems are spreading across the United States and into remotest parts of India, and COVID-19 and how COVID-19 has accelerated this trend by decades. Sridhar Vembu is the founder and CEO of Zoho Corporation and was awarded India's fourth highest civilian award, Padma Shri, in 2021. Zoho is one of the India's leading IT platform company and is on the leading edge of India's IT companies looking to develop or own a branded enterprise software platforms. Traditionally, Indian IT has been focused on service model, and Zoho has broken this model as one of the India's early pioneers and unicorns. But more importantly, perhaps, is that Zoho is sought long before COVID-19 a different model of software development that leverages rural skills development and distributed work environments. So moving to Deshpande, who is a bit of legend in the startup world, known not only from his work with the development in technology and companies, but also for his work with the education, STEM development, and innovation, including signature support for the MeitY Deshpande Center. Deshpande co-chaired the National Council to support President Obama's innovation and entrepreneurship strategy from 2010 to 2015. I know there are a lot of people in the audience waiting to hear from Desh. So with no further detail, let us move into the conversation. So I'd like to start on somewhat personal note with Sridhar. I understand that you haven't met Desh prior. Zoho started in 1996 and is currently co-headquartered in Chennai and Silicon Valley with plans to move to Austin. Early on, how did you look to the early innovators like Desh? What early lessons did you draw from their success in technology startups?
We actually have a background with the industry was in because we were supplying optical communication networking companies in the 97, 98, 2000 time frame. We were actually a prominent supplier to those companies for software, the network management software. So that was our background. So I followed Sycamore Networks and his previous ventures as well. So Desh has been an inspiration for us due to primarily, these were early successes in that. And the thing that one of the things early on that I remember from following optical space is how bold and audacious, ambitious his vision was in the 90s. And that has been an inspiration, source of inspiration for us at Zoho. So it's an honor to meet him today, and I want to, and I also want to sometime welcome him to our abode here in Tenkasi. So when you're in India, Desh, please do visit us here.
Yeah, yes, indeed, Sridhar. Whenever we used to have these Thai meetings or IIT alumni meetings, and we always used to, look up to Desh for, inspiration and for, starting this ICOMO networks and breaking the mold of service to the products company. So it's really, really great. So jumping into the core element of this discussion, Sridhar, you moved from Bay Area to a village in Tamil Nadu. You hired employees from rural high schools. You didn't take venture funding. Yet, Zoho products are comparable or even better than products made by leading high-tech companies in the United States. Zoho's products are about 50 to 75 lower than comparable products that I have personally reviewed. You have very loyal and dedicated employees with employee attrition rate at around 7% compared to about 20% for other companies. You made Tamil Nadu as the cloud computing capital of India. I'm simply amazed. What is your secret sauce? What mindset, values, and village life make you such an impactful entrepreneur in the world? And after that, I'd like you to also talk about what is Zoho's vision prior to COVID, and has this changed after COVID?
Well, the secret sauce is, of course, the talent, our Indian talent pool itself, and particularly the rural talent.
Mm-hmm.
Over 90% of our employees come from this talent pool, particularly from Tamil Nadu, but all over India. And that talent pool is what has built our products. And there is anybody who knows India knows the abundance of talent we have. And in fact, I always say our GDP to talent ratio must be one of the lowest in the world, which means that there is a lot of potential for expansion. Wow. And that's really the secret behind Zoho. And that's been from the beginning, that's been our motto to really leverage this talent and build a world-class organization. And we have been going about it. Part of the reason why we stayed private is I felt that this has to be a very long-term project. This cannot be done in 5 years or even 10 years. It requires some multiple decades of staying on it. And now 25 plus years in, we are still going strong. So that was why we decided to stay private from the beginning. And now that has created a cloud, a SaaS ecosystem in Chennai and other places in the south. And there's still a lot left to do. India is still in the early stages of this whole product evolution, and we have vastly more talent pool. Our companies can get much bigger. So that's what we are doing, and we have to combine and learn lessons from, of course, Silicon Valley and the other innovation hubs in the world, and combine it with what is unique to India. And what is unique to India is our structures, our social networks, and our customs. And that is what we do. We are uniquely a company that's a hybrid of a Silicon Valley approach and the rooted in India. So the combination is what has really brought us here. And we actually, I'm in Tenkasi. It's a rural district in Tamil Nadu, southern Tamil Nadu, which is about 640 kilometers from our headquarters in Chennai. And so we started this operation about 10 years ago. We have about 500 employees here. And of course, now all those employees, a lot of them work from home. But we used to have about 500 attached to this office. Now about 200 actually show up. Our offices are open, but about 30-40% coming to the office right now. And this has been going on for about 10 years. And we also had decided to expand these to other rural centers. And that's why I moved in here back in October 2019. And then COVID struck about 4 or 5 months later. And now we have significantly expanded our rural plans. We have now 20 plus centers dotted in all over the south and a couple of places in the north as well. And that is what has really changed. It has accelerated our rural expansion. Today, we are directing about more than 50-60% of the hiring towards our rural centers. And that's really what has changed due to COVID. And our own remote work tools, all of that have evolved substantially in the last about year and a half of COVID. So that's really what has changed now.
So Sridhar, that's very interesting that you have so many employees coming from the rural backgrounds. Now, I understand you also take these students right off high school, not even with a degree in computer science or mathematics or anything. So how is your experience hiring rural youth from high school, and what process you use to screen and select them, and what training you use? And some of them, I understand, become product managers or product owners, or equivalent to someone in Microsoft as a product manager, and they're as effective as somebody in some companies like Microsoft or Google. So what's your secret? How do you find this youth in the rural areas right after high school, and how do you train and equip them with your skills that are necessary to work in your company?
If you step back, you mentioned Microsoft, and it was founded by two college dropouts. They never finished college, and our industry, particularly the software industry, the broader IT industry, is full of people like that, where they didn't finish college or never went to college in the first place. And anybody who has been in Silicon Valley uh, knows that a lot of startup founders to this day come from such a background, where they may not have finished a degree, or they may have uh, abandoned their education, formal education along the way. And so that is what really inspired us to uh, ask the question, why do we need college at all for recruitment? And so back in 2004, we started this project. We used to call it what became Zoho University then. And that we started with 6 students and 1 faculty member to teach them. And it's all in our own office, in-house. And that batch became very successful. Within about 6 to 9 months, we could see that they shaped up quite well. And today you would call these some kind of a coding bootcamp, but we were doing this from 2004. And then we expanded that program and we took in more students, more faculty. Now we have over 10 faculty members, and we take in about 200 to 250 students a year. And we are not just focused on programming, but also in design, on business, marketing, communications, sales, all of these areas. So pretty much everything we do, we cover in our program, so students can specialize and go into those areas depending on their interest. And that is now really successful. As you mentioned, we have many product managers who come from this program. And I personally work with many of the graduates from this program on some of my own engineering projects. I run a couple of projects myself, and I work with these students, and the commitment, the dedication, all of that is really high. And I find as an engineer, the way to challenge myself is to be surrounding myself with this high energy, youthful talent that keeps me on my toes. So that is why I do this. And so there is a lot of this thing has contributed to sort of the energy level in the company itself. That's the biggest benefit here.
Yeah, certainly. When you have these product managers or software developers working in your villages, is that causing any kind of ripple effect in these villages in terms of the other rural youth getting inspired by these your Zoho employees working in villages? And so what kind of impact on the youth and the village environment? So this kind of remote work and also working for a company like you in villages, staying in villages and working in villages, how is that impacting the youth in those villages?
Yeah. At first, Tenkasi itself, here we now have, we even recently studied the economic impact of our center. This is a highly rural district. The largest town is about 75,000 people, which is tiny compared, no, and anything in India. This won't even count as a tier 2 or tier 3. It might be in a tier 4 type of a town. That's the largest in our district, right? And what we found out is the income levels around have doubled in the last 4 or 5 years, and directly because of the demand for a lot more labor. And that's, directly we had 500 jobs, but a lot more local jobs have been created, from everything from housing to transportation to restaurants have opened up, new retail shops have come up. This town now sports a nice, from everything from a pizza parlor to ice cream shops, all of that now, which weren't there, 7, 8 years ago. So all of these have, created jobs here. That's a direct impact. We also see, for example, wherever we have an employee, from that neighborhood, we tend to draw more employees because they come to know that this company exists, and then they aspire to join us, whether in our Zoho University program itself or in terms of our other direct employment if they have finished college in some cases. And then our employees become coaches and mentors to guide them to how to join Zoho. So as a result, we have sort of clusters of employees coming from particular neighborhoods or locations where the first employee became a seed and then it germinated, and we have now many more people coming from that. This runs within families. For example, if we got one student with a rural background into our program, their, maybe their siblings or cousins, their friends tend to join later. So all of that effect is really, profound. We have seen this, and after seeing this in Tenkasi, that is why I've started this in other places, and there where it's actually all these are germinating now. So we are seeing that elsewhere also.
Yeah, good to hear this, Sridhar. So this Zoho University that you have established and growing, I would love to have some separate session if possible with other software companies, CEOs, and see if we can learn some of the lessons out of that and implement in our companies. I'm actually encouraging my employees to go and work in their own towns, and I found finding them they're actually happy, because in India, people live in extended families, so they could go back and stay with their father, grandfather, parents, and uncles, aunts. And so they take care of a lot of their work, and it's working out very, very well. So employees are happy, families are happy, cost of living is lower. So they are more dedicated and working really well for us also in this COVID time. So let's move on to Desh. Desh, you as an early innovator, you continue to lead and participate in a number of ecosystems for entrepreneurship. Have you seen the innovation ecosystem evolve over the last several decades? Will COVID fundamentally change how innovation is funded and executed, or does the pandemic reinforce trends already underway?
Yeah, the basic thing, let's say the ecosystem in India, it starts with what Sridhar talked about. When you have 1.4 billion people, there are a lot of smart people there. In fact, I remember, I left India 1973 after IIT Madras, and all the 70s and 80s, a lot of us who left India were considered traitors because there was a big concern in the country about brain drain. And that concern disappeared very quickly in the 90s and 2000s because the country realized that for every one person who leaves India, there are another 10 to 100 people who are just as smart or smarter than the people who left. And so, in the very high end, so now it's the people who are making big differences in the high tech are not necessarily just a few select few who come from some IITs or just limited to a few people, but it's extending out to a lot of people. And just like we heard Sridhar talk about, it extends not even to graduates, it extends to even further down the chain. And so I think the businesses, number one, have to realize that the talent, which is the scarcest resource right now, even in India, that we have to develop that talent. A lot of these people are very capable, but they don't know that they're capable. They don't have the confidence. They don't have the context. They haven't been with other capable people to really know what's going on. And so it's really a cultural change. And the cultural change always starts with seeding 5, which then leads to 50 to 500 to 5,000. And then at some point, it becomes a critical mass, and then you don't need to do anything anymore. It becomes a Silicon Valley, right? So, so the opportunities in India are tremendous, and both businesses in India and the businesses in US are absolutely aware of this concept. But what they don't know is how exactly to do it, and that's why I'm so impressed with what Sridhar is doing, because he's a fantastic role model and an example of how this can be done. Another person that I've seen do this is Radha Basu. Radha Basu was one of the senior most women leaders in Silicon Valley. She actually opened up the office, Hewlett Packard office in India, and built it to $1 billion business. This is a long time ago when billion was a real billion. And so over the last 10 years, she started a company called iMerit to really open up opportunities for people from slums and any communities where people don't have these opportunities. So iMerit has about 4,000 employees. And what they do is they do all the video tagging. And she just opened up her center in Hubli, where we work, because we have a 300,000 square foot campus. And we have trained about 14,000 young men and women from rural India to become employees. So she just started iMerit in Hubli, and she has about 100 people, and she is going to be scaling it to 1,000 people very quickly. So there is no lack of talent. It's just a question of raising their aspirations, raising their confidence, raising their communication skills, and just moving them away from this yes sir culture and getting them to believe in themselves, and also say what you mean and mean what you say. Most of the jobs are pretty simple. If you can get up in the morning and say what you're going to get done and get it done by the end of the day, I think a lot of stuff can get done. And so I'm very excited about the potential that people have always talked about, this demographic dividend or demographic disaster, and people like Sridhar are really showing that it can be a demographic dividend if we do the right things.
Yeah, that's certainly, Desh. We have a huge demographic dividend, with over 900 million people living in the small town and villages, and quite a number of them are young. So one of the thing I really liked about Desh, what you do is you scale up the things very fast, very big. So you said that Sridhar is doing fantastic with respect to setting up his company branches in the villages, towns, and all that. How other companies or other companies can take this and scale it up in a big way so that we reach almost every village of the India?
Well, it's a little bit of both. First of all, giving what's easier to do is to hire people from these places and let them either work from those places or move them to wherever the work is. But for every one person that you move out, there's opportunities to open up a lot more things locally also. So, because entrepreneurship, all of us got started only because we saw a problem and we said we can solve this problem. And so there's many problems that need to get solved. And so this culture of entrepreneurship has to become native. And once we have that, lots of opportunities open up for lots of people. And I think the biggest problem in this whole sector is connecting competence to connectedness. What I mean by that is there's very few people who can really understand and appreciate the opportunity and the capabilities of these young men and women unless you actually go live with them, because they don't speak the same language. They have slightly different skills and so on. So, if Sridhar had not moved back there, there's no way he would have hired these 500 people and made them as productive as they are today. So we need to continuously work on this, our way of connecting the competence to this connectedness, so that we can not only enrich the lives of the people who live in these areas, rural areas, but also make them a productive part of the economy.
So this is really interesting, Desh. So if we have our companies encourage our employees to, move to their own villages and work, and they could be kind of seeds in all these villages, and also could be a role model. With this COVID, now people are now working from all across the world. I mean, I have known some employees here who go to different great places, and which they wanted to live and work, and they go and work, whether they work in Hawaii or they work in Arizona, whether they work in Chicago, whatever the preferences they have. Young people are seeing, going into all these different places and working because of this COVID and because of the connectedness we have. The same way, if our employers in India allow the employees to work from their villages, so we would have spread them all across the India, and also we can decongest the cities, so that we don't have the issues that with the traffic and pollution and all those things. And these employees can go to the villages and become a role model and inspire more young people to do that. So Sridhar, you had something about your employees actually participate in some of the village activities to inspire and kind of develop the youth, some programs. You want to share that?
Yes. Yeah. So our employees, wherever they are, we encourage them to be active part of their rural life or the community life, whether it's local festivals or other volunteering in local schools, coaching and mentoring the kids. A lot of this our employees do, and now many of them have taken up organic farming, and we actually have a very active farm group in Zoho. Over 1,000 employees participate in it, and many of our employees are, if they may already come from an agricultural background, or in other cases they are buying small parcels of land to start doing agriculture, and we encourage that too, because I always felt that we need to bring about a change and adopt sustainable agricultural practices, natural farming, less climate, with less of an impact on the climate, all of that. So that is that's something that our employees do a lot of, and this thing is spreading now. We are seeing right now, in fact, in Zoho, there is one debate: what percentage of employees even ever want to come back to Chennai? Over has gone for work from home, and I repeatedly get requests that open another office so that we can work nearby. So we have already about 20 plus now, and so it's spreading. And this is now the things to figure out are how do we knit all these together as teams, and what is the long-term vision here. A lot of that we are thinking through, but the movement is spreading now as in India as well, and the spark has been lit. The pandemic has served as a major catalyst, and I believe rural transformation is very much possible.
So it's good to hear that, Sridhar. So, Desh, coming back to Desh, you are intimately involved in several startup and innovation ecosystems. How do you view the strengths and weakness of the U.S. ecosystem compared to India's ecosystem? And are India and US are the partners, competitors, or somewhere in between?
No, I mean there's always a lot you can learn from each other. I think the way I would break up the problem is that there is 20% of the population in India which has a lot of disposable income, and there is entrepreneurship opportunities to cater that market and the global market. And in US, about 80% of the people have disposable income, which really keeps the entrepreneurial community going. But then there is 20% of the population in the US, which is not a part of that economy because they don't have a lot of disposable income. And we somehow need to include all the 100% of the people in this economy. So far we've talked about how do we take 80% of the population in India, which is not a part of the economy, and find the nuggets in them and make them so that they can become part of these bigger economies, high-tech economies, and so on. But there's also a very big opportunities to promote entrepreneurial opportunity within the 80%, so that they become their incomes go up, they become consumers, they become a part of this all these solutions that other entrepreneurs are coming up with. And similarly, we need to do the same thing with the bottom 20% in the US. We have to make them a part of the economy. We cannot have an economy where a few people are having a lot of fun with technology and coming up with all this automation and self-driving cars and everything else. And so we cannot have an economy where a few people are automating and the rest of them are being automated. So people who are being automated also have lots of entrepreneurial opportunity, and we need to pull them back. And I right now see India doing very well in that sector, because I think India now has a global talent, but also it has these huge problems right in front of their eyes. And so they're really trying to come up with solutions which are very scalable, affordable, sustainable, and so on, which is something that the US needs to bring back to make sure that the bottom 20% of the people in US become a part of the economy as well, to make it a sustainable economy. And then, of course, US always leads the high end of the technology. I've been on the board of MeitY for the last 20 years, so I see all these, amazing technologies coming online, and they'll continue to lead that. But it's amazing how, whether it's nanotechnology or mRNA or whatever the technology is, how quickly it becomes accessible to so many people that other people can use as well. So there's very synergistic opportunity between the two countries, because if US only invents all these fantastic things and never gets an opportunity to commercialize and scale those, because you need a lot of other talent, then US will lose out. And if India does not embrace all these new things, new ways of doing things, then they won't be able to make a big shift. So I see a great opportunities for both the countries to come together and help each other out.
Yeah, Desh, I like the way you said 80% of the people in the US have the disposable income, and then 20% in India. So we need to focus 20% in the US and the 80% in India. So that's very interesting. So one of the things, my experience, what I found, Desh, is that I have worked with the Thai Silicon Valley and also Moonshot Junior organization. Both are based in Silicon Valley. And we are conducting the entrepreneurship boot camps for students in India, predominantly from rural areas. And we have found amazing results out of that. The problems they come back come with to these boot camp or day-to-day problems that they want to solve, and the mindset that's changing, the students' mindset is changing. Instead of complainers, now they want to solve problems. So that's a very interesting change I've seen. And now they're becoming aware. With the Zoom, I could bring any entrepreneur or any person from Silicon Valley, talk to these students over the video. And so they are meeting these successful entrepreneurs. I mean, Desh, you talked to several of them. We had a Sadhguru's conversation, and that was a big hit in the rural community and among the students. So these kind of things where we can leverage the current technologies and the people in the US and help the people in India. And the same way, we are able to help the people in the, say, rural communities and also in the urban communities from the people in India with the tutoring and all that. So we're able to do the tutoring for city kids or rural kids from having the tutors in India. So the technology is really helping, and by focusing on entrepreneurship and by focusing on the rural communities in India and also in the US, I think we can make a huge change if we have more of these people living in the rural or urban areas of the, say, US come up, and it's going to be huge economically for both countries. So that's very, very good, Desh. So Desh, as a follow-up, you had an opportunity to support innovation in academia as well as in government through your work with the previous US administration. Do you have any ideas for the current US administration, how to promote American innovation, and also the same for the Indian environment?
Well, I think US is moving in the right direction. They just now have to execute on the policies that they're there in front of the Congress. So innovation essentially is two types. One is pure science, where great ideas that will have an impact 30 years down the road, and then translational research, which needs to see more immediate impact. And that's the second part of it, is where we work through MIT. And then I worked together with NSF to launch a program called I-Core, which has been amazingly successful. It's just making sure that the innovators are connected to relevance and the problems before they innovate, as opposed to innovate and then go looking for solutions. And so I think this I-Core and I-Core Plus are going to play a central role in making sure that the innovation really pays off. And India is spending a lot of money now, 40,000 crores. And so we actually are duplicating I-Core in India. It's called Incubate. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that over the course of next 4 or 5 years, Indian government will also embrace that approach for all the funding that they do for translational research.
That's great. The incubators truly help, Desh. Turning back to Sridhar, following up on Desh's comments, do you have any ideas about what policy actions or investments the Indian government might undertake to accelerate the Indian innovation ecosystem?
Yeah. Under the Prime Minister Modi's programs now, there is a lot of push to make sure we have the technology know-how in a variety of areas in India. For a vast population and economy the size of India, there needs to be a lot more know-how that has to be brought in domestically to both create jobs and also for economic and national security reasons. And that has been a major thrust in the government that I'm seeing. And a lot of questions are asked about why don't we have the expertise in this technology? And simply asking that question often leads to results, because then somebody realizes this must be done and we have to do this. So, and this whole programs from Make in India to Atmanirbhar Bharat have created a huge impact already, that you see ecosystems wherever I go. Companies are now doing new kinds of things that they were not doing before. And that's true across from whether it's electric vehicles, whether it's AI, whether it's analytics, it's biotech, in a variety of areas. I see a lot of innovation coming, and we have now governments at the central government and of course the state level and local governments at the district level are all much more strongly now supportive of all this. 20, 30 years ago, the situation was very different. But today, the governments are very much part of this movement. And I see a lot of positive things happening in that direction as well. So overall, government has become a very big force for pushing entrepreneurship, pushing technology evolution, acquiring know-how, and skill building. A lot of these activities now have a direct champion in the government. So that's what I'm very happy to see that.
So, Sridhar, what are your thoughts on Indian government's policy towards satellite broadband? Do you think satellite broadband would help the rural areas? Like SpaceX has a Starlink, Bharti Airtel has OneWeb. If these satellite broadband is available widely, would that help rural areas connected to the world and also unleash the entrepreneurship?
Our Prime Minister has actually announced fiber to every village. And in fact, the village I am in now has a fiber connection. In fact, I'm talking to you through my home fiber connection. And that's becoming increasingly, in all our centers now we have fiber connections, at least 200, 250 megabit per second speeds. So this is, now it's a government policy to spread fiber to every village in India. There are over 600,000 villages, so every village is supposed to get a fiber link. And that's a program, and then there are equivalent programs at the state level as well. And our IT minister, state IT minister, mentioned the same thrust to bring fiber optic connectivity, broadband to every village. And satellite also, I think in many cases, it can augment it for remote, difficult to reach areas, or simply as a second backup connection in case the primary one fails. I think both have a role to play. And given that India's own ISRO has been pioneering space launches at relatively affordable cost, I do expect a lot of things from that angle as well.
It's great, Sridhar. So good to hear that fiber to every village and also the backup from satellite. So that's great. So we are reached the end of the session. So I'd like to thank Desh and Sridhar for their time and participation in this chat. Sridhar, and I grew up in rural India. There are over 900 people living in rural areas of India. So broadband internet enabled by fiber, satellites, 5G, and cloud computing enabled by Zoho, and values predominant in Indian villages such as humility, contentment, service, gratefulness are going to unleash the hidden talents of rural youth to create more Deshpandes and Sridhar Vembus to make India as the powerhouse in software, semiconductor, and telecom industries. COVID accelerated the migration of talent from cities to smaller towns and villages. As India lifts these 900 million people to create two or more United States size markets, I'm sure US and India business will touch $1 trillion very soon. I'd like to thank all USIBC members and guests for watching this program. I'm sure this chat has been helpful in understanding the mindset and values of future disruptors, their entrepreneurial ecosystems, and how COVID-19 is leveling the playing field for people living in villages and small towns.